place that seemed very fair and very reasonable. It's peaceful. Everything works well here. I felt my shoulders loosening. The Japanese countryside it's just the most beautiful place that I've ever been. Moving to Japan was as much of a voyage across the world. It was equal parts a voyage inside. It's a utopia.
Welcome to Unpacking Japan. I'm Toby, and today I'm sitting here with Martin. Martin, thank you very much for coming.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me down to Osaka.
Yeah, you live in Shizuoka at the moment.
I do live in Shizuoka.
You run the Martin Show Japan on YouTube, also known as Gaiji no Tosan on Twitter, or X now.
Yeah, it is X now.
And you do a lot of stuff that is very interesting in the countryside of Shizuoka.
Oh, thank you.
So we want to get into that.
Okay.
But before we head that way, maybe could you introduce yourself a little bit to our listeners?
Yeah, my name's Martin. I am from New York City. I was born in the suburbs of Maryland. I lived in New York for 20 years or so. And I've lived in Japan for approximately 3 years. It'll be 3 years on Christmas this year.
Christmas Day, 3 years anniversary in Japan.
Yeah.
How did it get started? What made you decide 3 years ago to leave New York City to come to Japan?
Oh, my goodness. A lot of things happened in America when we decided to elect the president that was before Mr. Biden, and America just became a place that was full of unrest, and I always liked Japan, and America was becoming so hostile and so full of contempt, and it was a place that I was feeling I needed to escape from. I wanted to come to Japan because Japan was always a place that seemed very fair and very reasonable. So I came here for the peace. But what led me to come here was to live in peace.
Where does this interest in Japan originally get started?
I never thought much about Japan. I've had sushi, but I was never into anime or anything particularly Japanese. And then one day I met a Japanese woman, and we went on a date, and one thing led to another, and I visited Japan.
Okay.
Japan was amazing. It's peaceful. Everything works well here. No one bothered me here. All of a sudden, I shed my identity as a black person, and I just became a gaijin, became an American.
A foreigner.
Yeah, it's like in America, you're like a black guy, so you're a very scary guy. Like in most parts of America, like someone's going to pull their goods near them or shield their kid or, maybe strangle you to death on television. Like it's like you're sort of the boogeyman. Boogeyman. In Japan, my A's have become soft. Boogeyman. You're like the boogeyman in America. And in Japan, I just became a man. I just became a foreigner. And I felt my shoulders loosening. Like, for example, if I go to the 7-Eleven in America and I wander around, like they're going to follow me and look at me and sort of keep an eye on me. When I come to the kombini in Japan, I could walk around all day with my hands in my pocket, picking up every single individual item, and no one's gonna think twice about me. It's
They're not gonna assume you're a thief or about to rob the store. They're just gonna see you as a customer about to buy something.
Yeah, just a human. I mean, like, Japan gives me this great thing of being anonymous or being ignored. Like when the police are behind me in Japan, all I think is, there's some police doing some police stuff back there. I don't know what they're up to. Turn the radio up. But in America, if a policeman's behind you, it's a cause for a complete panic. Like it's time to like sit up straight and like, I don't know, roll down the windows, turn the music down, like get your driver's license ready. Like all of that nonsense just went out the window with Japan. So Japan was a place that lured me in with the potential to become just a human and not have to think so much about the color of my skin. And to this day, I live way out in the countryside. I can go walking at 3:00 in the morning, which happens sometimes, out in the middle of nowhere where there's never, I could argue there's never been an American, and definitely not a black guy, and definitely not a black guy that looks like me. And I'll run into some Obachan, 3 a.m., like walking her Shiba Inu, and all it is like, konbanwa, konbanwa. Like no one tenses up. It's just, it's wild. So that kind of a thing is the reason I came here, just to chill.
So you experienced this on your first travels when you met a woman in New York and you traveled together to Japan and you're like, oh, I want to come back to this place.
Right away. I never had thought about Japan. I mean, I thought about it because I'm a member of society, but I never thought to move to Japan. It's in tomorrow,
And now you live in Shizuoka and you live in the countryside of Shizuoka. So how did you arrive there? Why did you pick this area instead of, for example, city like Osaka or Tokyo, or where a lot of foreigners tend to arrive first?
My hippie ideals got the best of me. I had visited Japan for about a decade on and off, and we'd stayed in Fujiwara and in various parts of Shizuoka. And we thought that was the Inaka. The Inaka is like the countryside. So when we decided to come here, we wanted to get a place in the countryside. And the Japanese countryside it's just the most beautiful place that I've ever been. I mean, there's Unkai, which is like the
Sea of Clouds.
And it's just glorious. It's just absolutely glorious. So we moved way out to the countryside because the hippie in me got the best of me, and I was just knocked over by its beauty. And I also have the opportunity to have a gigantic garden there. There's no one that lives near me. I can make as much noise as I want. The community embraces me. It gives me daikon and like loves me
free
and my
vegetables.
son. And it's a utopia. It's hard to believe how peaceful it is. So that was why I moved there. Just the beauty of it.
A lot of people that are considering moving to the countryside in Japan particularly may be concerned about like maybe finding work opportunities or what are they going to be doing or infrastructure wise. How did you manage to balance this when you arrived in rural Shizuoka?
Fortunately, I have a career in New York City advertising, or rather editing in the advertising world and making content. And fortunately, Japan invested heavily in their internet infrastructure. My internet connection in my house in the middle of nowhere is the fastest internet connection I've ever been on in my entire life.
Faster than New York?
Way faster than Google Inc. Like I can upload a terabyte in 10 minutes. Like it's shockingly fast. So the infrastructure was there. So I was able to do the work. And I also shoot, direct, and edit. So I was able to work for the prefecture to make a bunch of films about tea and
Shizuoka is very famous for producing tea. The biggest region in Japan, right? For tea production.
It's the biggest region in Japan for tea production. So I made a bunch of films for tea, and I keep my connection back to New York City for editing. And I've worked on a project for Tokyo Station. They were working in the Yaizu terminal. So I made a portrait piece about the renovation, specifically the new lighting they put in. They changed the feel of the space, working with this company called Loop Lighting, and they reimagined the space to make this beautiful airy space and the otherwise kind of dreary bus terminal. So I flew my drone around in there and made this kind of poem about this space.
Cool.
So I have like these very odd one-off jobs here in Japan and an odd one-off job in America. And with the exchange rate, and the price of living here is just about, it's very affordable.
Especially right now with inflation, the weak yen, it's kind of, if you're getting paid in US dollars, probably very convenient.
It's convenient, but it's kind of scary. It's so cheap, it's spooky. I think your first reaction is, wow, to go to McDonald's, it costs $4.70. And in America, it's like $14. And it's like, oh my goodness, to get a pack of oranges is 70 cents. In America, it's $3 or $4 maybe. But then I have pause because there's always, something has to be corrected at some point. Markets always correct themselves. I'm nervous about this sale that I'm living in at the moment. but it is shockingly inexpensive. I mean, an average rental home out in the countryside, once you have it secured and renovated a bit, can be had for much less than a New York City parking space.
Yeah, New York City is crazy. I remember a few years ago, my cousins went to work a little bit, a few months, and they had to pay a few $1,000s to rent like basically a cabinet in an apartment, in a shared apartment.
Yeah, I mean, my rent in New York City was like $3,500 per month, plus another couple $1,000s for health insurance, plus groceries and internet. I mean, you were looking at 10,000 USD per month just to wake up in the morning and brush your teeth. So that's like 120,000 post-tax dollars just to live like a peasant in a tenement building.
And now you're probably at 1/10 of that in the countryside.
If that.
So when you arrived, you had been to Japan quite a few times already.
Yeah.
Did you have any kind of surprises actually moving in and living in a house in the countryside? Something that you were maybe not prepared for?
Yes. Many. The one that pops to the front of my mind is the healing nature of silence. It's dead silent in my neighborhood. When the postman is 3 kilometers away, I can hear him turn on his motorcycle. And a byproduct of being in that silence was, sounds so hippie. This whole thing sounds hippie, but it was just joy. You know, I found myself having like vivid dreams every night. Like I woke up laughing. In my dream, I would laugh, and then I would wake myself up giggling because I was laughing so hard. So that was one of the big ones. And on the flip side of that, I live like Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, I'm raising.
What a reference!
I mean, if I can, everything Star Wars. I mean, you know, I'm watching my child. You know. Watching him grow up in seclusion, and I'm living like a hermit. I'm living like a monk. This is the most English I've spoken in months. This conversation I'm having with you right now. Weeks and weeks go by where I don't speak any English, and my Japanese is poor at best. So one of the surprises would be the effects of isolation and what it does to your mind. There's really moving to Japan was as much of a voyage across the world as it was equal parts a voyage inside, because there's the stimuli is not invasive. You know, the stimuli is passive. You know, it's clouds and mountains and monkeys and grass, and you begin to become one with nature. Like when I'm taking a walk deep in the woods, sometimes I can tell if someone else has been on that path because some minute stone is moved or something, or there's a flower that's been chopped up, and things that I would never notice. So being in Japan, one of the surprises is becoming in harmony with nature. And this is something that you might look at me or hear me and think that I'm the world's biggest hippie, but I'm just like a black dude from New York City. Like I like Jay-Z and like, you know, drinking Guinness and just being part of the fray. But this connection with nature is one of the things that happened here in this exile.
I like this thing you said about sound, because it's maybe something we don't think about too much living in a city. Right now, as we're recording, we can hear the sound of the cars passing on the big avenue outside. And even though it's a small background sound, there's always the sound of the traffic light. There's some guys on bikes making extra noise, police sirens or the firefighters, a train passing by, people talking, speakers in the stations. It's just kind of constant noise, right?
Yeah.
And you don't realize until you get to a place where you are living now.
Yeah, it's just something else. There's the obvious thing. It's quiet. It's nice that it's quiet, but there's something else that happens to your brain. There's just some healing balm. It's like putting like Vaseline on chapped lips, you know? It just feels so good to live in silence. But again, like I mentioned, you know, not to repeat myself, but it's a high cost to live away from everyone. I mean, part of the reasons I started in America, I didn't have any social media whatsoever. And in Japan, I just stumbled on social media because I was just bored, you know, and these little videos or tweets that I make are really the only times that I'm usually speaking to people. Like I'll open up the application for, you know, a half an hour here and a half an hour there and like put things in and maybe time them to be sent at various times. But that window into communication is, once that window's closed again, the world just goes away. Like the war, American politics, right? Like everything is, if I don't open the laptop, if I don't, because we're in Japan, if I can even turn on the TV, if I keep myself off of something digital, all of the world just vanishes. There's just the cloud in the sky and myself and the whatever. There's no passive information coming into the gas station. You hear about, I turn on the news and it feels like everyone's just like, oh, it's end times. Like, oh, I don't know about things today. Like I'm not sure. Like I don't have any of that. Like I hear those broadcasts and it's like news from an alien world. Everyone has the sound, this is singing the same song that these are the end times and we're not sure how things are going to turn out. But because of where I live, I'm not part of it. So it's weird stuff.
What would be then some of the challenges, some of the more difficult things that you had to adapt or learn when moving where you're living now?
The more difficult that I had to adapt to? Not being part of the PTA. In America, like I love public education. I love knowing what's happening in the school. In Japan, the way the school system works is it's an equitable school system. So if you're living in the countryside, or if you're living in Tokyo, or if you're living in Hokkaido or Osaka, you're all getting the same basic, all the students are getting the same curriculum.
Is it not like that in the United States?
Yeah, in New York City, if you were living in a in a zip code that is low income, you're going to have a completely different curriculum and set and access to materials and talent and teachers than if you are living in a zip code that's high income. So there's great disparity. And it's also in New York City, the city has been
boroughs?
gerrymandered. It's their boroughs, but even in Manhattan, there are arbitrary lines drawn so that if you're underneath this line or above this line, you can only go to a certain set of schools. And so it basically has all the brown and black and lower income people behind an imaginary wall so that they don't have access to the better schools. So in Japan, everyone goes to the same basic set of schools. I'm sure that if you are living in Tokyo, maybe it's a little bit better, I guess, but the school system that I have access to in the countryside is spectacular. But one of the differences is that the parents are not invited in to sculpt the school system to their liking as they are in America. It's parents are passive; they're not.
So there's the school board and the school education Ministry of Education that basically decides on the curriculum, decides on the approach and what students should do, how they should dress, and the activities they should do in sports.
Yeah,
for example, and you don't really have a say as a parent.
Yeah, my only say is to teach my kid the importance of questioning everything. Every morning I tell him, to be kind, try your best, have fun, and learn something. And I tell him that, the things you may learn are the places you may learn the most are outside of the classroom. Because, in Japan, there's a lot of harmony. And from my perspective, in my firsthand experience, a lot of that harmony comes from, the conformity. So it's a double-edged sword. One of the classes that my kid has is moral education in school, and the school is peaceful, just like Japan is peaceful. But one of the things that I have to do is sort of encourage him to question things and to not accept this, homogenization that happens in the school system.
That's interesting. I went to the French school system and I always thought, well, we learn a lot of things that are maybe useful, some things that may be less useful depending on what you end up doing in life. But one thing that's very strong in the French system I found is this questioning. To constantly ask why, to constantly kind of challenge whatever is being said. We have classes about philosophy and so on. So that was quite interesting, and I did feel the same, although I haven't been part of the system in Japan, that there's less of like this questioning. You don't ask questions so much to the teacher, you don't question the teacher or what is being taught.
No, this is very much the case. I consider myself a guest here. So as a guest, of this country that has been so kind to me and my family. I don't want to come in and throw stones at it because the system is working beautifully. Everything works. Everything's clean. Like everyone's pretty intelligent. Everyone's really compassionate and empathetic. But watching my son go through elementary school here, I can see how everyone's sort of being trained in this way of approaching the world that I see some problems, potential problems with.
You just mentioned you consider yourself as a guest here, and we're gonna get into the videos, but in the videos you regularly say a phrase which is "you're living on Japan, not in Japan."
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
I'm a gaijin. Like my little name on the internet is Gaijin Otosan, and gaijin it's an outsider. Like I am not. Let me back up a little bit. When I first moved here, I wanted to live in Japan. I wanted to get a Japanese job. I wanted to be part of it. I wanted to leave America behind and really dig all the way into Japan and just live a simple Japanese life. Put my roots here and just that's it. I'm just going to follow the rules because as a guest visiting, I was like, oh, well, everything works here. So let's leave America. America's chaotic. I'm just going to just get in. And then once I got in, I just saw the level of obedience that is required to excel here. And I'm feral, In my old world, I did a lot of advertising and making, and it was always celebrated to do wacky things, putting the wrong lens on a camera or playing the song backwards or asking someone an irreverent question in an interview or making the video in black and white, just doing something really wacky on the fly, just being a virtuoso. Like being a virtuoso was how I made my way. Everything just sort of worked for me because I could always sort of bend the rule, like giving someone, the concert's never sold out. I've got $20. Like just let me in. Come on, man. Like, come on, baby. What's going on? Like none of that flies here.
No, that doesn't work here. You didn't buy your ticket for the concert in advance, you can't go in.
Yeah, there's no wiggle room. So, in Japan we have hanko, we have this rubber stamp, and in Japan
that is used as a signature.
Yeah, we need it as a signature, and there's a lot of faxing. You have, if you are going to be successful here, you need to keep your voice down, send in the fax, be everywhere on time. So, when I say that I live on Japan, it's like I'm still me, but I'm not ever going to be part of this group. It's not happening. I'm a happy guest. Like living in here is just sort of like, you can never become Japanese unless you have Japanese mom, Japanese dad, Japanese face, Japanese skills, Japanese school. Even my son, who is fluidly bilingual and is loved, he's still gaijin, and he goes to school in like the countryside wearing his like hat and like eats his miso soup every day, like he's a gaijin and I'm a gaijin, so I happily live like on Japan. And this the way that I perceive things is just I have to always adjust to not cause a ruckus, and I happily adjust, but there are it's living on it. It's taking advantage of the best of it and not being subjected to the worst of it. Like I can be myself. There's this phrase here about the nail that sticks out, you have to hammer down.
Yeah.
I can be the nail that sticks out forever. I try to pull my son's nail up as far as possible every day. Like living in Japan is having that nail hammered in. Like if I'm polite and respectful, I get to take advantage of the best of both worlds. And that's what I sort of mean by living on Japan.
And so your life on Japan is what you kind of showcase now on your YouTube channel that you started a while back. And so you started this account, you mentioned earlier, you got into social media after arriving here because you were a little bit bored and you wanted to interact with people that are not in your countryside. Yeah. So you started this YouTube channel as well, Martin Show Japan, where you really show your life. I would call it like nearly raw footage of you in the countryside, driving around, going to a supermarket, talking to the obachans and the oji-sans. How did you start this channel? What was on your mind when you were like, I'm gonna start filming this?
The first time you see something is the only time you ever see it. Every other time you see something, it's referential. And I was realizing that the ordinary things that I was seeing, the things that I was seeing that I was now had become ordinary, were once quite exotic. And I'm a lover of attempts at capturing the ephemeral. So as Japan's exotic nature began to rub off, I wanted to try to capture these moments. And the part of me knows that I'm living this detached, peaceful existence. So I feel that broadcasting out these mundane things, like going to the 7 and getting a coffee, then pointing the camera at a K truck and looking at a tea field, these things that are really mundane, I like to imagine that there's someone sitting in some chaotic place hearing about politics, and it's like 4:00 in the afternoon and they're trying to sell their sprockets and go through their crap, and they can just have a YouTube window open and just see my stupid butt sitting there talking about like daikon or something that's really lighthearted, like passive, easy viewing. Like I'm really careful to, I'm aiming to make things that are relaxing, that are distractions, peaceful distractions that are low intellectual activity, and like hopefully will give someone sort of a joy, a sensation of joy watching them. And I'm also making little time capsules for myself, because I know that this life living in the countryside and popping around in a minivan isn't forever. So I'm making open diary entries on my channel.
So you can look back at it with your son maybe in a few years.
Yeah, and the world. I mean, and where I'm living, it won't be. Japan has a serious problem with depopulation. So there are things that I've documented that don't exist anymore in the brief period that I've been here. Houses that are gone, people that are gone, old bachan, oji-chans that were farmers that are no longer here. And then in addition, things that aren't featured, I'm sometimes called upon in the community to document things that are going on at the shrines for future generations to be able to recreate these ceremonies. So there's a lot of stuff that never makes it to my YouTube channel. That's like the great stuff, because I have like a high level of trust in my community. So I can turn the camera on anyone at any place, anytime, and no one ever has any issue with it. Because if you notice, it's like 99% me. Like it's rare that you see another person, because Japanese people don't want to be.
They're a little bit camera shy, and usually when we see them in your videos, they just kind of casually walk by in the background. You just meet and greet, and they kind of keep on with their journey, and you keep on with yours.
Yeah, if anyone accidentally gets featured, they're cut. The outtakes are really glorious. I mean, there's a lot of just like shashin to doga, hi, boku wa, like my broken Japanese and talking about pictures is often edited out. But yeah, I'm just trying to put something positive out there in the world.
What are some of the most unexpected encounters or events that happened of your filming, things that you qualified as mundane?
I was shooting the clouds floating over the mountain way out in the middle of nowhere, and the police came along, and the policeman was on a motorbike. It was the middle of the day, and he got off the motorbike and he said, "You're blah, blah, blah's daddy. You like to take pictures." And I said, "Yes, I'm blah, blah, blah's daddy. I like to take pictures." And he said, "That's great." And I said, "Yeah, it is." He said, "Have a great day." And that was the police. That was the 5-0, man. The cops rolled up on me to say, you're my son's name's dad. You like with the most enthusiasm. And that, the black dude from New York City, is stunning. The cops came. Whenever the cops show up, man, it's only trouble. The cops in New York City show up, in the Inaka show up, and they're just like, what's happening? Another time I was down by the river, and I was shooting some video, and similar thing happened. The cops came over, and they're just like, what's going on here? I'm like, I'm shooting the river. Like, oh, that's great. To the average, white person, maybe, or someone living in a different country, these may seem as mundane instances. But for someone that's been shooting pictures since they were like 7, to be able to just make things in my own and be way deep in my own head and have the police interact with me, and it's just nothing. Like that's a stunner to me.
It's kind of like the completion of why you came here too, right? Kind of leaving this kind of rough environment behind and finding an environment that's more welcoming and more.
Yeah. I mean, I love America. I love America. I love like blue crabs on the eastern shore of Maryland. Like I love fireworks. I love like being fat. I love like all of like the love America, the exceptionalism, the me first of America. I love all that stuff. Like I love it, but it was sort of killing me over there. This trip to Japan, you know, when I say trip, people get nervous on social media, or this visit, you know, it's like, it's been very healing, but it's, you know, it's like everything in life. This is temporary. You know, there's nothing permanent. Like this season has been a season of great healing.
So considering that nothing is permanent and you kind of are trying to capture as much as possible, how do you approach making those videos? Do you ever select themes that you want to film, the sea of clouds, or you want to film the river, or do you just start in the morning, you're like, I'm just going to turn on the camera and see wherever I go?
Oh, well, the first thing I do is I go to sleep at about 9 o'clock at night when I put my kid to sleep. My kid and I go to sleep at the same time. And then I wake up at about 4, usually, watch the sun come up and listen to the bird sounds and do that kind of jazz, and maybe do some other adult type work. And then the most important thing for me when I make any video is to have a charged battery and an empty camera card and have an empty mind, just unrehearsed. Like I just wait, I'm just at the ready. I just have the camera gear always at the go. And if I try to think about it, then it's ruined already. Like I just see a moment and I'm like, oh, we're gonna make a video about blah, 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 blah. But it's never scripted and never planned, never, like always unrehearsed. Like it's the way that these videos are made. They're always unfolding as they go. You know, even the editing part can be a bit painful because I try to, don't want to be a big phony, you know? Like so many of the videos that I see in Japan, they start out with, today I'm in Osaka, and in Osaka, it's known as the breadbasket of Japan. So the first thing we're gonna see is the top 5 places to have ramen in Osaka. And in Japan, you have to get the tick. It's like, slow your roll, dog. Like, I don't want my videos to start out with, my name's Martin, I'm in the countryside. Today we're gonna look at the clouds that come over the forest. They're called unkai. And you know what? They're baboons over there. Better watch out for a monkey. Stand by, theme song. It's like, it's like, kill me. Like I try not to make that video. But simultaneously, I try to make a video that someone will watch. So this is sort of the balancing act I'm doing at the moment, is trying to inject some type of life in these things, because everyone's infinitely scrolling through their phones. So I need something to say, hold on, sister, slow down for a minute. We're about to go to Japan. And I've literally been saying that recently. Just hang on a second. Just bear with me. I know that you're having a wild day, but we're going to spend a few moments together. And we're going to look at the clouds. I know this is not what you're expecting, but just give me a minute. Like if I can, and when I look at how the metrics work, it's sort of working. If I can just make an interruption without, being a prostitute for the piece we're about to see, I can usually get people to kind of get in there and like stay around, stay involved for a bit.
So you actually brought up the topic that I was about to get into, which is you said earlier you want people to kind of be able to take a break and kind of just come along for the ride and just in a chaotic world witness a little bit of the peace you're experiencing in Shizuoka. And so you make your videos, you upload them on YouTube, but YouTube is an algorithm that kind of favors, it needs to get traction, it needs to get people to be engaged with the videos. If they drop off, the video is not going to be shared. And then ultimately, maybe the people that you hope will see your videos will never find it. So how do you balance this kind of not going into this extreme, today I'm in Osaka, I'm going to check the 5 top ramen restaurants, but also get viewers engaged so that maybe more people will see it? Like, how do you kind of keep that balance?
A few things. One is the all important thumbnail. I've learned that I need to put my face on the thumbnail looking at the camera in order to get someone to watch the video. Like if a thumbnail has my brown face on it, looking at the camera, it'll get views. If I look shocked or surprised, it'll get more views. And here's something really weird. I've not yet to do this because I can't stand it, but a lot of the YouTube thumbnails have people with their mouth open. It's the weirdest of things. Like I've studied them. So
are you saying that after for this podcast, we should make a shocked face with mouth open to maybe get more views for this episode?
Yeah. Look at the thumbnails. Mouths are open. All of them. The Mr. Beast, all of these people have their mouths open. So it's like, I've been trying to put more crafting into the thumbnail. Basically putting my face in it. And it's like a beauty contest, and it's so humbling. I'm a grown ass man with like debt and a kid, and I've loved and lost. I live in Japan. It's like, I'm out there taking like beauty shots of myself and cutting them out in Photoshop to get someone to watch a video of a bird sitting on a fence. Like it's ridiculous, but that's one of the things. Another thing that I've been doing, or that I've noticed gets people to watch, is just real fundamental bread and butter campaigning, meaning the other social media platforms, staying involved with them, because like Twitter, I have a big family on Twitter, a bunch, like I follow a few hundred people and a few people follow me, and I try to engage in all of the comments with those people and then try to ask them to come over to YouTube to watch videos. So that does some that helps push people over. But if the way that these other social media networks, the goal is to keep you on their platform. So if I go on Twitter and I post a link, new video up, link, like it will just get buried. But if I record a video that's just me walking around and put it directly to Twitter, then 5,000 people may watch it. But if I put the link up to the exact same video, like 60 people will watch it. So I sometimes will make a standalone video that's just to Twitter that's like, hey, blah, 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 blah. This is gonna happen there, check it out. I have to make commercials, which is the dark. I come from the dark art of commercial making. So I've had to put on my wizard hat and start making my own television commercials for myself, which is strange.
It's interesting, right? Because in the end, we just want to create kind of original, interesting content. You are showing Shizuoka. For us, it's kind of recording those interviews. And at the same time, we want to do it our way, but it has to fit into the spectrum. Otherwise, people can't see it.
Yeah, it always needs to be the same note. Like I need to be in Shizuoka talking about the same thing. It really wants repetition. It doesn't want me to go off and do a video about how to make chocolate chip cookies. Like it only wants to hear about one thing. And I mean, a part of it is, it's a two-way road. I'm getting better and better at making these videos of the countryside. So the audience, I believe, is enjoying a video that is, my English, not speaking of English, better crafted. I can't think of the phrase.
Better edited,
better made video, because I'm becoming a specialist in making these videos of the countryside. So if I make a video about making chocolate chip cookies, it won't be as good because I don't make chocolate chip cookie videos. So it's interesting. It's interesting trying to get viewers. And the thing is that I mentioned before, it's really humbling trying to get viewers, because I make these things for myself, really. Like I have always made things. Like it's just the strangest of things to like, it makes me, when I'm making a thumbnail, I have to sit and have a conversation with myself about, what is my intent here? Sometimes I just feel discouraged. I'm just sort of like, what's the point? But then when someone, or, a few people watch a video, there is a joy. And, like I said before, it's a two-way joy. That they're getting something out of it and I'm getting something out of it.
What are some of the challenges you face when you record those videos? And the context of this question is that recently there've been a lot of, they've been called nuisance streamers. They film videos of not paying for the fares of the train or harassing people. And this seems to become more and more popular. And we have seen Japanese society react to this in a way that they want to maybe enforce more restrictions. I saw an article this morning that major train companies in Japan are currently deciding on perhaps imposing a ban on filming in trains. And more such regulations may come down the road. Do you face any kind of challenges when filming your videos, or do you feel like in the countryside you still have the freedom to make what you want?
100% freedom. I mean, I was shooting something in Kaizen Sushi, like I've never released, like maybe there's one Kaizen Sushi is conveyor belt sushi. I was shooting something there the other day, and like no one has ever said anything to me. I mean, in my community, I'm just wallpaper. I'm either wallpaper, meaning that no one notices me, or I'm the peacock. And like, who cares what the peacock is doing? Like, look, it's interesting. Oh, there's a peacock. Like, no one bothers me. I'm curious about being in Osaka and having my gear as to what it will feel like to be shooting. But I don't face any barriers. The only barriers I face are stopping the turning on the part of me that's the Mr. Rogers part of me that's talking to a piece of plastic as if they're a human being, as if there's this person that's standing here and inviting them into this experience that we are about to share. That's the only real challenge. There's no environmental challenge or legal challenge that I face.
How does it go with the community? We mentioned that you sometimes meet people or people walk by while you're filming and so on, and you show a lot of the nature, the mundane. But do you also have opportunities to maybe film something like community gatherings or like engaging with the people living in that countryside and highlighting maybe their lives and their ideas?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I just filmed our fall festival, Matsuri. We had a fall festival where we had yatai, my big Japanese word, float, like Macy's Thanksgiving Day float. So proud of myself. It's for my son if he's listening to this, yatai, a big word. So we had these beautiful floats that are going through the town, and I made a video. I had a camera set up. I did a few of my tricks, meaning that a camera here, a camera there. I sort of mapped out and blocked how I was going to shoot this thing. I was also a participant, so I have a rope and I'm pulling this float down the street. And I have beautiful coverage, and everyone's in it. The whole town's in it. And I've begun to edit it. I just have such unprecedented embedded level footage that it gives me a funny feeling about exposing everyone, because these are people who they trust me. They have no problem being on the internet, but because I've never seen I met the first foreigner in my town a few days ago. I'm a little hesitant to put up these videos because it's so beautiful and it's so ancient and it's so magical. I get a little nervous about sharing the intimate moments and showing the people, although I have a few of them shot and sitting around. It's just, I will do it, but it has to feel right. And they always just feel a little bit too invasive. It just feels a little, it's one thing if I'm prancing around saying, hey, look at Martin, he's getting a coffee and, Japan this and me that and Maryland crab cakes. It's a different thing if I'm pointing it at someone who has full trust in me, has known me for a few years and has let me into their world. And just, it's just really exotic. Like you've seen some of my videos, and maybe someone's listening and seen, like you see some pretty exotic stuff, but the stuff that you don't see is just wild. Like there's just some old school Shinto stuff that goes on out there that's just next level.
Have you ever asked them to maybe give you authorization to publish the video and share it? Do you think that kind of coverage will be interesting also for people that don't know from the outside to kind of witness this?
Oh, they asked me to put that up. They want me to edit them.
So this is really just your personal feeling of like, although they want you to put it up, you're like...
Yeah, because it's like the undiscovered country, man. I've never seen any videos made by like a professional maker, not with my iPhone, with my real camera. Like, I mean, I love my iPhone. I do everything on my iPhone because it's so easy, but I also like have proper filmmaking equipment. It just gives me pause to put these type of things on the internet to show people the real deal. I don't think that there'll be like a flood of tourists, but it's just, it would be the first time these types of things have been seen. And I'm just cautious. I have to do things that feel right. something says, slow down, Martin.
What are some of the common misconceptions that you've noticed people have about the countryside or living in the countryside that you would like to maybe dispel or kind of?
Misconceptions about living in the countryside. That it will be easy and peaceful, and you'll be hanging out. It's extraordinarily difficult to be in the real, genuine Inaka, in the real countryside. Japan is a foreign country amongst foreign countries. And once you get out there and get into the real thing, it gets extremely foreign very fast. The gas stations in my town close on Sundays.
Sounds like France.
we had a 7-Eleven, and we have a Welshia. Welshia is like a Dwayne Reed, or like a little, multi-function market, and that's it. There's just a lot of things that at first seem novel and beautiful, and then after a while it can get really intense. If you really are in the mood to have an avocado on a Thursday at 2 p.m, you need to be prepared to drive a couple of hours to get that avocado. Or, I'm not in the mood to cook tonight. I've cooked every meal. I've cooked 98% of the food that I've eaten in Japan. It's the simple life can be quite complicated. The complicated part is being self-reliant. My son hurt his neck the other day. It was nothing, he's fine. But there's no one to come get you.
Yeah, the hospitals are further away, the doctors are further away.
Yeah,
you need to figure it out.
Yeah, if something happens, you need to take care of it. Even there's wildlife. That would be the misconception, is that I think people, where I live is exactly like Totoro. It is so much like the movie Totoro that it is shocking. It's a 1-to-1 recreation of Totoro. It's cosplay Totoro. And the movie Totoro is real peaceful. There's music playing in the background.
Yeah, Ghibli music, very popular worldwide now.
Chill. Everyone's taking a bath, and Totoro's out at night, and Nikobasu's going prancing to the countryside. And that's all real. It's as real as can be. But when you're really in it on, year 2, day 37, and it's Thursday, and you want like a bowl of Cheerios, that's 2 weeks away, that bowl of Cheerios. Or if, I'm really in the mood for a taco, like, you better learn how to make a burrito, and you better grow yourself some cilantro, because cilantro is called pachi here, and paki, you better learn how to say it in Japanese. Find a store that has it in the off season, because Japan's very seasonal. So getting cilantro in the countryside is a non-starter, let alone a burrito. So if you want to have a simple burrito that you can get anywhere in America, that may be a multi-day or month project. So adjusting to self-reliance and being comfortable with the unfamiliar and not speaking English. The misconceptions are just the challenges of a voyage in.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good to be prepared for those and to know how to do these things. What about Japanese language? You said your Japanese is relatively poor. Is it something you're working on? Is it something where you feel like your experience could be completely different if you would speak better Japanese than you do now?
Yes and yes. My experience would be dramatically different if I were speaking Japanese fluidly. I'm an experiential learner. I learn by doing and learn by experiencing. The Japanese that I know is like bag, credit card, no thank you, that hurts, I'm sick, where is it, like the things that I come in contact with all the time. I don't run into many humans in my day to day. The average day, I see no one, like literally no one.
Because you work remotely as well.
Yeah, I work remotely. I live on the side of a mountain. So there's no running down to the izakaya to grab a quick beer, and on the way home, going by the konbini to get a bag of chips. Like those transactional moments for language acquisition are non-existent and existent in my world. And that's the way that I have learned everything from operating a camera to parenting. really learn by doing. I mean, I read books and, I'm part of society, but I'm really a hands-on kind of I am the guy that can wire your VCR back in the day, or figure out how the computer works. Like things that you can touch, I can do, but abstract things like my multiplication table, I still don't know, and I'm 75 years old. Like, so I've not learned Japanese. And to add to that, I teach, my world is English because I have a little kid. So English runs in my house. The house is running in English. And not only am I running it in English, I'm keeping up like rapid paced conversations to keep his English up above his grade level. So even at home, I'm not only am I not learning Japanese, but I'm projecting English. So it would be the number one bit of advice I would give to someone that wanted to move to Japan is pay off as much debt as you possibly can and learn as much Japanese as you possibly can before you contemplate coming here, because it's critical. Japanese people do not speak English. Yes,
in the cities, more than in countryside.
Yeah. Everyone understands, but here's a catch. Almost all Japanese understand English surprisingly well, but they're very hesitant to speak it. So you wouldn't want to be a fool and walk in the store like saying something obnoxious, because everyone's highly educated here. It's a pretty equitable school system. So the comprehension of English is much higher than you might guess, but the speaking of English is ridiculously low. So if anyone was coming here, I would encourage them to learn Japanese, because this is a Japanese speaking place.
You've been here for 3 years now, nearly 3 years, in the countryside. You mentioned that some of the things you've captured are gone, some people, some buildings. What have you seen as some of the more positive developments that have happened in your community, where you see, there's still something going on, it's still developing, it's still growing?
I mean, there are definitely fewer and fewer people there. Like schools are closing, no one's moving in. There's no population growth. There's only population shrinkage. I mean, it's positive in that the community is happy and the people are pleasant, and there's a general level of contentment and physical health and well-being and services provided by the government that are equal, and that are, Japanese are always improving things incrementally. So everything works well, but it's pretty stagnant. It's definitely pretty stagnant. It's the same all over and over again. There's this song by the Talking Heads, it's called Heaven. The guy, David Byrne, is saying that heaven's a place where nothing ever happens. He's like, when the party's over, it's gonna be the same party again tomorrow. When the kiss is over, it's gonna be the same kiss again tomorrow. The countryside, the paradise of the countryside is this repetitive nothingness. It's exactly the same, fewer people, but there hasn't really been there's no movement of, this year for the summer, we're going to, have a fair where we try to blah, blah, blah. There's just not that energy. It's just the same.
Do you feel that as a member of that community, but also with an external audience, your role could be to highlight the community and in a way to maybe help revitalize it? Or do you think that it shouldn't be done? You mentioned your fear about, for example, showcasing the community during their festival, and maybe too many people may come and want to see this, and it might kind of disturb this balance that you currently...
Yeah, this is an interesting subject. I actually had someone from my city reach out to me to talk about becoming a liaison between the world and this town. And I presented some pretty solid ideas to them about being how did I call it? Basically like a cultural ambassador, to maintain a YouTube, a Twitter, a Instagram that would highlight businesses, activities, things that were happening. And the idea would be that it's all in English. Here's this gaijin who's way out in the countryside, and he's going to go to the onsen. Onsen's the hot bath. He's going to go to the onsen, and no one speaks English here. And if he can do it, then you can do it. And so I would write it all in English. We'd see this experience in English, and then we'd have a link to the onsen or the Michino Eki, like the farmer's market, like these various experiences. So I presented all these ideas to the city, and I made like a PowerPoint, a little booklet, because Japan loves a piece of printed goods.
They like the printed booklets?
Yeah, I made a printed booklet.
If it's printed, it's validated.
Correct. Right? I printed a booklet. I wrote a book, and I bought a URL. I did the whole nine. And so they came to my house, because Japan, again, has a lot of in-person meetings. So the city came over, not the whole city, of course, but some members came over. We chatted for a bit.
500 people standing.
Maten-san. Nani? Daijoubu? Hi. No, there was they sent over a few members of the town hall, the city hall. And we chatted, and I showed them the idea, and we had tea and crumpets. We did the whole nine. And then no one followed up with me. It was the strangest of things. And I presented my credentials, which are, I have a pretty solid set of credentials from the States. Like I've worked for a bunch of companies, and I know what I'm doing when I'm not being Gaijinoto-san and aiming a camera to, river. I can also make, real, genuine, hardcore TV commercials. So I presented the whole picture. Like I have social media that a few people look at, and I also have like deep skills in making commercial content, and I also have like independent production from drones to blah, blah, blah. I can do 360 social media ambassador, and I'll do it for, I don't know, $500 a month, like nothing, like just basically for free, like a stipend. And they never followed up with me. And it was the strangest of things, because everyone in Japan, it's unprecedented for someone not to follow up and say, thank you, it was nice to meet you. But it was one of the only times when no one wrote me back. And I was not ever able to put my finger on it. Because even by American standards, if someone makes you a booklet and a presentation, you're going to call them back. And this was like the city, it's a pretty reasonable city. Like they came and they never wrote me back. And I don't know what it is.
To this day, you don't know?
I can only speculate that either one, I was too much me. I was too American, and like, I do this, I'm the greatest of that. I mean, I'm not, I minded myself and I was polite, but maybe it was too much of like, I've worked for this company, that company, this company, I can do this, this, and this, and here's the plan. Maybe it was too forward thinking. Maybe that was a turn off. Or maybe, I'm not Japanese. Maybe, a small part of me is just like, maybe they don't want foreigners to come. Because like this plan I laid out was like pretty, like people are going to come. Like pretty sure they're going to come. If this Gakakujin is showing you paradise that you can have for $70 a day, all inclusive, and here's the link, I think the Gaikakujins are going to come here quickly. So maybe it's that, but I never got a follow-up. So, assuming, what that does, it's like, but that was one instance that put a pause on my pause even. Because I'm hesitant to expose things. And when I made a big push to invent this role to showcase this place I live in, it was the opposite of received. So, like I live on Japan, man.
You live on Japan?
Yeah, man.
we talked a lot about your little piece of paradise in Shizuoka. Have you ever been able to experience other areas in the countryside, not in Shizuoka, and compare? Did you notice any clear differences in different countryside areas in Japan, or similarities?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the biggest difference, NHK invited me to host their television program called Journeys in Japan.
I think so, maybe.
I think it's Journeys. Oh, gosh, they were NHK. I'd like to personally apologize if I'm not saying the name of the show right. Journeys in Japan. I'm almost sure it's Journeys in Japan. My throat's getting dry.
So NHK reached out.
Yeah, they reached out to me, and we went to Hokkaido for a week, and I spent some time with the Ainu, who are the indigenous people of Japan, and that was wild because I'm a product of the American school system. The Ainu are the native people of America. of Japan, just like the Native Americans are the Native Americans of America. And so there was a whole other world up north with a whole other Inaka that was completely different. People that looked different. Not everyone was skinny. People hugged me more over there. It was it was no longer Japan. So that was a version of the countryside that was quite different than my version of the countryside. The food was much more hearty, and it was just a whole other vibe. And then I've been out to the hot springs in Nagano, and that was like, I think that's where the snow monkeys are. Like, and
yes, Nagano.
And that's like a different version of the countryside, but that was pretty touristy, and I had a very wide-eyed, new to Japan perspective on things. So yeah, those are the two that sort of leap out to me as different experiences. But the Ainu, that one was just something else. Sort of a sad, complicated situation because, you know, Japan is so Japanese. And that sounds ridiculous, but it's when I'm in the nearest town to me, which is Shizuoka City, which is sort of like a Boston kind of a feeling size town, in the middle of the day, like I will only see Japanese people there. Like I will, and unlike my country, like if I'm in a place like Boston, let's say, and imagine for some reason there's only like white people in this part of Boston, which can happen in Boston, there'd be a potential for contempt. Even though I'm an American, there'd be this, I'd be on the lookout to be in a white part of Boston. But in Shizuoka, where it's so Japanese that there's no contempt, like it's just, there's an indifference. So to be in Japan and to see the Ainu people, who are the indigenous Japanese people, be so different, but then still be Japanese, that was pretty stunning. That there's more than one type of Japanese in Japan.
Yeah, the Ainu have quite a long history, complicated history with Japan too, and
it's rough, man, very rough. I mean,
now on your personal journey, looking back at 3 years in Japan and kind of creating content and kind of capturing those moments, showcasing those moments, has it make your perspective change from that first impression you described to us earlier when you arrived and you found this peaceful place, this quiet place, and then you started showing it? Do you still perceive it exactly the same, or has it changed with time?
Has it changed, or have I changed? I think is the question. I think Japan, after being here for 3 years, it's much more beautiful than I could have ever imagined, and it's much more peaceful than I could have ever imagined. I thought that the facade and the hospitality was only extended to people that were here on holiday to a certain extent, and I thought that, you know, once you see Fujisan and once you see some of the great uas of Japan, that they would begin to tarnish. But it's more beautiful like every day, and the people are kinder than the day they were before every day. So that this perspective shift is that it's just otherworldly. It's what's changed, you know, is me. It's not it. It's just whenever I eventually leave Japan, it's gonna be a feeling of permanent like homelessness, I think, because this place has changed my perception on what is possible. Like there's universal healthcare here. It's a place that's hospitable. It's a place where the government hopes for you to succeed, and it's a place where the people hope that you make an attempt at harmony. So I think that what's changed is that I have embraced a bit of this, and it's sort of been etched into my perception of the world. So it's remained constant, but it's I that have changed.
Looking at the future now, with your channel, with your life in the countryside, your son's education, what are your big plans now? Like looking into 2024 is around the corner, and
it has indeed.
Do you have things that you want to do, places you want to explore, things you want to make?
I would love for the internet to give me $1. I would love for the internet to give me a stipend for the content that I've put into it. You know, that would be like an incredible experience. Like, that's one short-term goal, which may or may not happen. I think that my YouTube videos are the subscribership is growing, the hours are growing, like it's getting more and more popular. Every day it was more popular than the day before. So if it keeps on going at this rate, it will begin to return some profit in the very near future.
Maybe in unexpected ways.
Maybe, but you know, it's weird, man. That's not really what I want. You know, I just like making things. And in order to get people to see the thing, I need to stand in front of it. That may sound insane, but I'm good at chit-chatting and talking to the camera and like doing the thing, but that's not like what I want. What I want to do is just aim the camera at the thing and just quietly not say anything and just have a picture of the thing. But you know, I have to contextualize things. So I'm going off on a bit of a tangent as I love to. But yeah, in the future, I'd love for the channel to pay me because I like making things, and I think that would be an incredible experience. My little boy is not into puberty yet, but I have great concerns about him going into puberty in this country. I had the good fortune to grow up in an America that was hadn't gone through this recent social revolution and this rise of neo-fascism that is about to explode in the next 12 months. So I'm a bit torn. Part of me would like for my kid to go back to America where you can experiment with all types of things. Like all the things that a young person could experiment with without being judged. I would like for him to have that experience. I'd like for him to have the gift that Americans grant themselves of being able to fail, triumphant failures. Like in America, I mean, look at what Bill Clinton did. I mean, and we love him as like the greatest president ever. Like that would be like a career-ending move if a Japanese politician were to treat his intern like that. Like I would love for my son to have the opportunity to take some big swings and some big misses and then to get back up and be like, I don't know. Like that doesn't seem to be something that's celebrated in Japan.
Not really, no.
So it's a bit of a catch. As he gets older, I want him to be able to mess up. And I think that it's really important to mess up when you're young. And I think it's really important to try out a bunch of different yous, you know, when you're youth. Like I've been to all the clubs, I've done all the things, I've kissed all the girls, I've abused my body. And I'm just like, you know, dude living on a hill, taking pictures of birds and stuff, because I've done it all. Like I'm here with you chit-chatting. There's no part of me that wants to, like I'm in Osaka, I want to have a beer, I like to have some French fries in that or something, but there's no part of me that wants to see anything because I did all the things, like twice, some of them 3 times. So as we move into the future, you know, that one of my goals is to figure out where to give my child a chance to be safe and to have an experimental phase.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then, of course, I've got to make a living. There's that. You know, everyone's kind of going back to work. The economy's shrinking. And my Japanese is horrible. And I'm a wild animal, so I don't think I can really fit into a conventional Japanese company. So I need to get some type of... I need to get a job.
So the goals for 2024 are all set already.
Find a place for my kid to go to school, get my YouTube channel monetized, and or get a job and make some friends.
Well, a lot of good things are coming then, right? It's a new year that's going to be very exciting for you too.
Definitely.
We talked about a lot of things today. Is there something that you feel like we haven't really touched upon? Your life in Shizuoka, your YouTube channel? Or do you feel like we covered it?
This has been a great conversation. If I had the world's attention for a split moment, if there was something I wanted to say about my life here in Japan, I would say to it's a dangerous thing. One of the big gifts that I've been granted by the good people of Japan is the gift of freedom. I know we touched upon this subject earlier, but if there's any like Black American person out there who's suffering with the nonsense and the institutionalized racism and the confusion of the African diaspora that Black people are subjected to in America. And if you want to just breathe and walk down the street and think about your own stuff, learn some Japanese and come over here and you can just chill. You can just exhale. But before you leave, fill up your book bag with all your snacks. Better buckle in for some serious rice eating, brother.
Food for thought. Thank you very much, Martin.
It's my pleasure.
For coming all the way to Osaka. Thank you for sharing and being so forthcoming with your life, your experience, your perspective on Japan. It was a great conversation. I learned a lot, and I would love to explore your corner of Shizuoka one day, maybe.
Oh, you'll see more of it next in another few days. What's coming next down the pipeline?
Yesterday, you posted about visiting the book off store and exploring the cheap records, and more videos to come. We'll link everything in the description.
Awesome, that's so nice of you. Thank you.
Hopefully, more people find and enjoy your content.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing y'all.
Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for watching. This was Unpacking Japan, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.